Hey guys, Matt Hill here from Matt Hill Motorsports. Today I'm going to show you a little bit of a rundown on what you may bump into when installing a 4R70W into a 2003-2004 Cobra running a set of Kooks long tube headers. If you're running that combination, you may discover that you have clearance issues with your stock factory starter. Today, we're going to try to solve that problem. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed. So before we get started on our install and comparison here, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a rundown. This is a 1999 Cobra. The engine and transmission had been the 2003 Cobra engine along with a Kenny Bell 2.8H. The T56 from that combination, we've ran that in many configurations. It was built by Bob Hanlon with a 26 spline input, a little bit of his love on that. We were running an SFI Bell after having some issues with the stock Bell. And then we never had a problem with the starter clearance at that time. We really only bumped into it with the 4R70W along with these headers. These are Kooks headers. Some of my lines, forgive me, I've loosened up some of the lines on this for the install and the transmission swap. But we did go with the Donathan Racing tubular front bumper support. This does have an aftermarket heat exchanger, and now we are running an aftermarket stacked plate transmission cooler. That is running dash 8 lines right now. I will go ahead and put the Vibrant line spacers in as we button up this transmission install here. So the main thing I wanted to do was go ahead and get the starter in before I put everything in place so I had a little bit of room to work. But as you can see, pretty nice piece. This car also has the IRS has been replaced with an 8.8 solid rear, running a Detroit True Track. Some aftermarket axles. We've got aerospace brakes on board. It's a pretty stout piece if you bump into it out there. It's owned by one of our longtime customers, probably a 12-year customer at this point, 13-year customer, Jimmy Moen from Somerdale, New Jersey. Beautiful car though, pretty quick, and we'll see what it does now. So as you can see here with the Kooks long tube, the primaries actually sweep around the area where your starter would be. That's not really a problem, or at least it wasn't in this car, the way we've got it set up when we had the T56. The issue came about when we went ahead and swapped the 4R70W in. We were able to actually put the 4R70W pretty much on its side and slide it past the headers with the headers installed. I prefer, if I can help it, not to remove the long tubes or pull the passenger side, as is quite common during the install, because once I've got one of these running and it's sealed up, I don't really want to have create the potential for an exhaust leak. I like to keep these things intact if I can help it. Now, as you can see, this starter absolutely, no matter what we really try to do here, it pretty much just hangs up. It hangs up right here, right actually on the flex plate. It's hard to get the camera in here. Hangs up right on the flex plate, and on the other side, again, kind of hard to get the camera up in there. The other side is actually hung up on the body of the starter. I've actually trimmed the studs a little bit on the solenoid, and you just can't quite work it in there. It's just too big. The solution would probably be to slide the bell back, loosen the bolt a bit on the bell, and you're talking a very small amount of clearance necessary. However, on this being a customer vehicle, I'm really not interested in doing that, because at some point, if he needs to service this vehicle, take it apart, he's going to run into trouble, and the trouble that he's going to probably hate me for. And rather than have a dissatisfied customer when he goes to take the car apart, I decided to go ahead and look for the solution to this. Okay, and this is going to be our fix for the day. This is going to be the Ford Performance, as they're now known, M11000C50 high torque mini starter. This is the one developed for the 4.6 applications and the 5.4 modular applications. It'll also fit on a lot of your Coyotes and Coyote swaps. And it is a nice looking piece. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the comparison, the side-by-side between this piece and the relatively new starter that we had that was an OE replacement starter from Ford. Okay, so here we have a side-by-side comparison. We've got the Ford Performance high torque mini starter on the left, and we have the OEM, it's actually a Ford piece that shows remanufactured, that had been in the Cobra on the right. As you can see, they are relatively close in size still, as these starters aren't really that big to begin with. But as you can see, the starter solenoid is smaller on the high torque, and overall it's just a little bit smaller. How much smaller? Well, hopefully just enough. At least that's what we're hoping here today, so that we can get this all installed and get this Cobra down track. Okay, so just a quick side-by-side comparison here with a tape measure. If we go ahead and we hook the edge, we come up with right at about 5 15/16 from the lip here to the end, and about 6 inches if we include, there is a screw here, if we include that screw. Now if we come back over here to the stock starter, we are at an exact 6 1/4 to the body, and if we include the hardware, we're looking at right at about 6 1/2 inches here. So you can see it's not a huge difference, but that 1/4 inch in this tight application like this is huge. And just in case you're wondering what comes along with the starter from Ford Performance, you're going to get a hardware kit which has the nuts for the studs for your battery terminals, for your power supply. You are going to get those along with the 3 bolts to actually bolt it to the bell housing. You'll get a short run of battery cable and a card to go along and tell you how to install it, and give you reference in case you're having a hard time with your install or you're retrofitting it into a different application. Okay guys, and here is the starter installed. I tried to make a quick video of myself installing it, but you just can't see what I was doing with between having the header in the way and my hands in this shot. You just couldn't tell. But as you can see, the Ford Performance supplied hardware here, it slapped right into place. I mean, it literally just fell right in like stock starter would without the long tube in place. As you can see, there's plenty of room here between the stud here on the solenoid, which is a shorter solenoid as we saw earlier. There's plenty of room here. There's clearance without even trimming this elongated stud. We still have plenty of room between the primary and the solenoid and the hardware there. There's a lot more room around it. There's a lot less interference between the engine mount and the starter body itself, the large portion of the starter body, where we had a lot of interference before, and that was actually what was hanging up. And it wasn't really that easy to just go ahead and pull the motor mount, because if you did that, then you put the starter in place, then you really had a heck of a time trying to get the bolts back in. So I highly endorse this product so far here. If you're in one of these odd situations where you've got a 4R which seems to push the starter just a little bit to where the Kooks really doesn't get along, the Kooks primary here really doesn't get along with it. So if you're interested, go ahead and check it out. I've got these listed on the website as of today. This is the Ford Performance high torque mini starter on the 2003 Cobra, along with Kooks headers, which we are a Kooks dealer, and a Lentec transmission. We're also a Lentec transmission dealer as well. So that's all for now, but I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a piece of advice on how to make your life a little bit easier. It does come at a cost. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but this will make life easier for your installs, your removals, and you won't have to be removing header tubes or moving things around. You'll be able to just slap this thing right in, and actually you'll have room to get to your top starter bolts and everything else. Very nice piece here, the Ford Performance high torque mini starter.